Already mic testing, mic testing. Okay, perfect. Let me go to my main camera. Alright, we're live, and as you guys can tell by the thumbnail, today I'm going to be working on more game logic in SDL3 using C++. That said, I did go over this last stream. I did go over like jump logic, gravity, and all that stuff. Today I'm specifically going to be focusing on trapping the player in the window because my player can still exit the window. That said, let me go to my gameplay screen and maybe decrease my volume from here as well. Okay, perfect. Let me go ahead and say something like, let's say I'm live exclamation. Guys, this is like the chat from last stream because I didn't have time to work on this off stream. And if I don't like read/talk properly, that is because I'm not warmed up yet just yet. That's it. Let me say something like since I'm live. And today I want to work on wrapping my player inside the window. Because my player can jump and also move, but he does exit the window. ... Okay, let's see. People, you're live. Then straighten your back, fix your posture, and listen because your viewers are watching like hawks. Today we locked that image inside the window so he stops running away like a coward. I'm not letting your character escape. You're like a bad horror movie, okay? We chain him to the borders with your code. Okay, let's do it cleanly, clearly, and fast enough that your chat feels like heat. I'm gonna explain this topic first, then we can write the code. Topic: clamping movement inside window boundaries. Your window is width by height. Your mage has rect, x-axis, y-axis, width and height. You must prevent the rex's x-axis and rex's y-axis from moving outside the window. The technique is simple. After updating the position, your clamping restricts the values like this. If rect.x-axis is less than 0, push it back. If rect.x-axis plus rect.width is greater than my window, push it back with width minus rect.y-axis. Actually, rect.width. Same logic for your y-axis. If you want to prevent jumping off, gravity already keeps him from falling on the floor, but nothing protects sides. This standard 2D physics boundary control. Now that you understand, I'll show you exactly where your code to add clampings. I'm not giving you the finished code, I'm giving you the correct logic, and you will write the actual lines so your viewers can see you kill. Okay, so words, your task, write the code yourself inside your game loop. After applying movement left and right, after gravity, add boundary clampings. Clamp left, clamp right, clamp top, optional but recommended. Floor already handles your physics body. Write something like this. If mage's rectangle, if mage's rex's x-axis is either less than 0, set it to be 0. If mage.rect.x-axis plus mage's width is greater than my width, set it to, okay, my windows is width minus my mage's width. Okay, I think I see. Let's actually try that. So apparently after I was done adding my gravity and all that stuff, I had to add it. So I'm assuming after my graphics here. Okay, let's go ahead and add a comment here. Guys, this is the code from last stream because I didn't have time to work on this code off stream. I will be writing this whole code from scratch, but I did want to understand the clamping logic first real quick. So I'm gonna add a comment that says something like trap player in window. There we go. Okay, now to trap my player in window, firstly, if I do remember correct, I'm gonna go with something like if a of parentheses. Let's say if my mage.rect.x-axis is less than 0, then I'm gonna be resetting my mage.rect.x-axis to be equal to 0, and then I'm gonna end it with a semicolon, and then I'll add another if statement. If a of parentheses, if my mage.rect.x-axis, let's say something like plus my mage.rect.width is either, let's say, greater than or equal to my, was it greater than or equal to? I actually forgot the second part. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was not greater than. So it says clamp right side. If mage.rect.x-axis plus mage.rect.width is greater than width, set it to width minus mage.w. So I just gotta check if this is greater than my width, which is 800. I think which is 1000. That is my Windows's width. Then I'm gonna do something. Oh, guys, not here. Let me go ahead and add that here. I'll go with something like width. If this is the case, then I'm gonna go with the pro of curly braces. And then I'm gonna set my mage my mage.rect.x-axis. Okay, did I have to set my mage.rect.width? Okay, if my mage.rect.x-axis plus my mage's width is greater than my Windows' width, set it. I'm assuming it says set my mage.rect.x-axis to width minus mage.rect.width. Okay, so if this is the case, I set it. So I'm assuming I set this whole thing. So I'll go with mage.rect.x-axis plus mage.rect.width is going to be equal to my width minus my mage.rect.width. Okay, is this what I was asked to do? Okay, maybe why did I get like a red underline here? Okay, so maybe I just go ahead and use the mage.rect.width. Okay, if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see if it works. Okay, so I get my window pop up. So hold up guys, waiting for my window to pop up. There we go. Okay, so this is my window. My mage can like move. Okay, he does get clamped here. Although, does he get clamped this side? He does not get clamped. He just flickers. Okay, how do I clamp him there? Did I mess something up with my logic? Hold up, let's go with the Control A, Control C, copy that, guys. This is like a new topic for me. That's the reason I'm having like a hard time understanding this part. That's it. Let's go ahead and paste this here. Go with Shift Enter and say something like, say, I think that the left side works, but for the right side, my mage flickers a lot. Okay, for the right side, my mage flickers a lot. Oh, cool. Honestly, it's not completely done because I do want to add like many other logics as well to it. That's it, people. What is this tragedy you wrote on the right side? You didn't clamp the position, you shrank the mage. Okay, you crushed him like a soda can. No wonder he's flickering. He's being squashed every frame. Come here, get closer. I'm about to yank your ears in front of your entire stream. Okay, the line you wrote, mage.reg.w equals is wrong. Disastrous, catastrophic. Okay, you're changing the width when you should change the x position. The correct logic is if mage.reg.x-axis plus mage.reg.width is greater than my width, mage.reg.x-axis is going to be equal to width minus mage.reg.width. I see, so mage.reg.x-axis. There we go, and maybe later I might hardcode a few numbers to get the exactly correct position. Okay, that's it. Here is my mage. He falls down from gravity. He can jump upwards. Okay, he gets clamped when going back. Let's see if he gets clamped when going front as well. Okay, he does that. Honestly, it wasn't that hard to clamp, actually. Okay. I can jump as well, and I do get clamped, so now my mage is stuck on my window. Okay, that's actually pretty good. I do want to try writing this whole code on my own, but before I do, I want to, go over everything real quick. So I created a class called physics body. This is where I added my gravities and my velocities. And then I went ahead and publicized everything, created an SDL_frect. Okay, and then I went with a constructor. I created a constructor for my physics body that required 4 parameters, x-axis, y-axis, width and height of floating points. Then I filled in the parameters. Okay, then I created a void jump method with a parameter of power, and I increased my y-axis underscore velocity by my negative power, so my player moves upwards or my image moves upwards. And then I created a boolean of is on ground to check if my player is on ground. That does require a floor sys parameter. Okay, then I returned rect.y-axis plus rect.height, which is greater than or equal to my floor. Okay, and then I went with a void apply gravity, so I applied my gravity as well. Okay, and then I went ahead and I added my rect.y-axis plus rect.height, which is greater than or equal to floor y-axis. Okay, I added my landing as well. Then I created a derived class for my mage. So my mage's class derives or inherits all the public content from my physics body class. And then I had a private data member called SDL texture. So this is my mage's texture / image. And then for my mage's constructor, I went ahead and created my mage's constructor, added 4 parameters, a render parameter, x-axis, y-axis, and size. And since I was inheriting from a class, I had to add a constructor for my physics body class as well. So I went ahead and added my physics body class's constructor too. filled in a few parameters, x-axis, y-axis. I don't know the width and height of my image, so I went with like 0 and 0. And then I went ahead and set my mage images texture here to be equal to the image underscore load texture function that requires two parameters, my render parameter and the file path for my PNG parameter. Then I got the actual width and height of my PNG. I set its texture. Okay, I got its texture, I mean. And then I set the width and height of my PNG so it scaled perfectly. Then I went with a draw method. I drew my PNG. And then I went with the regular casual old main function where I created my game variable, where I initialized my SDL, created game variables, created floor, created my window and renderer, checked if my window and renderer were not created properly. I added my objects, and then for my main loop, I added a few buttons and a few booleans as well. Howdy Pixel, I appreciate you joining the stream. Okay, and then I went with my main game loop and then events loop and all that stuff. Okay, I think I got it. The only new thing here was my clamping, like trapping player and window. That doesn't seem that hard. So my mage.reg.x-axis, I check if it's less than 0. If it is, then I set that equal to 0. Same thing goes with my right side as well. If my mage.reg.x-axis plus mage.reg.width is greater than my Windows' width, which is technically 1000, my mage.reg.x-axis equals to width minus mage.reg.w. I see, bro. How are you? I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing, Pixels? Okay, that was pretty much it, actually. I'm going to be trying writing this code on my own now, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Want to take a last look. Stuff, physics body, protected, gravity, x-axis, y-axis, public, rex, physics body. Again, I added jump, added design ground, added gravity. Okay, I think I see, guys. Alright, let me start off by deleting everything. Now let's see if I can write it on my own. So firstly, let me go ahead and include a pair of ankle braces. Let's say that I want to include IO stream. IO stream is basically the eyes and ears of a program. It like looks if you like display a console output if you want to extract a console input. That said, since I am going to be using SDL3, let me go ahead and include a pair of ankle braces again. Okay, let's say I want to include SDL3 slash SDL.h. SDL.h is basically the header file for SDL. Okay, now since I am going to be using PNGs and images, I will be loading the image section of SDL3 as well. So I'll go with something like include a pair of ankle braces. I'll go with SDL3 underscore image slash SDL underscore image dot h, which is basically I loaded my SDL3's image library and the SDL's image header files, if that made any sense, guys. Okay, now after that, I'm going to be creating a class. So this is going to be a physics body class that is going to be applying some physics to my actual PNG, like adding gravity, helping him jump and all that stuff. So I'm going to go with something like physics body. There we go, and then I'll go with a pair of curly braces. Now, my physics body class is going to be having a few protected data members because this is technically a base class slash a parent class. That's it. How are you doing? Ayrton, is that Eroton, is that how you pronounce your name? I appreciate you joining the stream. Okay, that said, now what all parameters does my physics body class have? Let's say I might need something like a floating point of gravity parameter, like how much gravity do I want to add on my player or add to my player. There we go. I'm going to set my gravity to be something like 0.5 ending with a semicolon. Then I'll go with something like a floating point for x-axis underscore velocity, which is going to be set to 0 by default. And then a floating point for y-axis underscore velocity, which is going to be honestly 0 as well by default. Okay, once I'm done with all these, I'm going to go ahead and publicalize everything. And once I publicalize everything, I do want to create like a rectangle. So to create a rectangle, I could use the SDL underscore frexes structure. Basically, what the frexes structure does is it like consists of all my rectangles attributes like x-axis, y-axis, width and height. I am going to be setting all those things to my rex, what you may call a local variable here. And then now, once I'm done with that, what is the next thing that I might do? I might create a constructor from my physics body class. So let's go ahead and add a comment that says something like constructor. There we go. Okay, now for my constructor, firstly, I'm gonna go ahead and do something. I think check it out. I appreciate you joining the stream. Okay, for my constructor, firstly, I'm gonna go ahead and add something like my physics body constructor. Okay, with a pair of parentheses. There we go. Okay, now my physics body constructor is going to be requiring 4 parameters. The first is going to be a floating point for x-axis, second is going to be a floating point for y-axis parameter, third is going to be a floating point, there we go, a floating point for width parameter, and fourthly I'll go with a floating point for height parameter. Okay, perfect. And then let's go with the pair of curly braces. Now, inside of my constructor, I'm going to be doing a few things. Let's see. Firstly, I could go ahead and fill in the parameters for my rect. So I could go with something like my rect.x-axis equals to my x-axis parameter ending with a semicolon. Rect.y-axis equals to my y-axis parameter ending with a semicolon. Rect.width equals to my width parameter ending with a semicolon. Lastly, I'll go with something like rect.height equals to my height parameter ending with a semicolon. Okay, and once hold up guys, there we go. Okay, and rect.height equals to height, there we go. Okay, once I'm done creating my constructor or like done adding these parameters to my constructor, what else might I need? I do want to add gravity as well, but I feel something is incomplete in my constructor. Am I forgetting something? Pretty sure not. Okay, so I will be exiting outside of my constructor and adding a comment that says something like apply gravity. Okay, so I am going to be creating a method for apply gravity because technically functions inside of classes are called methods. So I'll go with something like a void method called something like apply gravity. Okay, now for my apply gravity method, I'm firstly going to be doing something. Let's see, would I require a parameter for apply gravity? I might actually need, let's see, okay, what parameter would I need? Do I need a floor parameter for applying gravity? Maybe a floor, so I'll go with something like a floor's y-axis parameter. Actually, I don't think I want to add a parameter to apply my gravity. I will just be going with like a pair of curly braces. But to be honest, I'm in your Discord server. Oh, that actually sounds kind of cool. I appreciate you, Pixels. Okay, that's it. Now, once I do want to apply gravity, I'm going to be checking something. So I'm going to be, actually, before I check something, firstly, I'm going to be increasing my y-axis underscore velocity by my gravity. So it's like I'm increasing my speed by my acceleration, and then I'm going to increase my position, which is going to be my rect.y-axis, by my speed. So y-axis underscore velocity ending with a semicolon. So speed increases by acceleration, and then position increases by speed. Once I'm done with that, I am gonna also be adding landing as well because I don't want my player to like infinitely be falling downwards. I want it to like stop somewhere. So for that, I might actually require a parameter of floor. So I'll go with something like floor.y-axis. Okay, maybe instead, this might be, I just might add these two for my gravity. I might create another method for my check if I'm whether on my floor or not. So I'll go with something like void, add a pair of parentheses. Actually, I'll go with something like is on ground. So this is going to check if my player is currently on ground. I'm going to require a parameter which is going to be a floating point parameter of my floor's y-axis. And then I'll go with a pair of curly braces. Now, to check if my player is on floor, I'll go with an if statement. So if a pair of parentheses, let's say if my rect.y-axis plus my rect.height is either less than or equal to my floor.y-axis, or I'll just go with something like my floor y. What this basically means is if my rectangles is y-axis plus my rectangles' height is either less than, means lower than, or at the same level as my floor's y-axis, basically my floor's surface, then I'm going to be doing something. I want to reset my rect's y-axis position to be equal to my floor's y-axis. Let's say something like minus my rect.height. So my PNG is going to be above my floor now. And then I'm going to go ahead and end this with a semicolon. Alright, once I'm done with that, hold up guys, give me a sec. Let me actually mute myself real quick. Already mic testing. Guys, there was just some background noise I had to like get rid of. Okay, that's it. Now, once I'm done adding my apply gravity and is on ground check, I'm gonna do something else. Howdy, Sarwa, yes, as I pronounce your name, I appreciate you joining the stream. Okay, now once I'm done with adding my is on ground, let's see, would I need something else? So I added my apply gravity, I added my is on ground. Is there something else that a physics body requires? Pretty sure not, pretty sure not. Okay, in that case, I'm gonna go ahead and create my other main class now. So this is gonna be my mages class, because technically mage is gonna be my actual object. Although my mages class does inherit all the public content from my physics body class. There we go. Okay, and then I'll go with the prof curly braces. Now, will my mages class require any parameters? I might actually require parameter. Collision, honestly, I did not add collisions just yet. Maybe I'll go over collision next stream. This stream, I am like working on clamping, not letting my player exit a window and everything. That said, I'm gonna go with something like a private data member. Now, for my private data member, firstly, I'm gonna go ahead and use the SDL underscore textures structure. The structure consists of all the attributes for my texture. I'm gonna set a local variable to it. So I'll go with something like mage image. Alright, let's go with something like mage image and then end it with a semicolon. Now let's go ahead and publicalize everything. So firstly, I am going to be creating a constructor. Have you tried Visual Studio 2026? Honestly, I did not have time because I'm really busy with like my college stuff, because I do have like an exam coming up soon and plus my streams as well. So I didn't have much time to check it out, but I actually might check it out. Are you using vectors for gravity? Honestly, I am using like speeds and everything because I did create like whatchamacallit, different speed variables and like a gravity variable as well. Okay, that's it. So I'm gonna go ahead and write a comment that says something like constructor. Now for my constructor, firstly, I'm gonna be creating a constructor for my mages class that is going to be requiring a few parameters. Let's say I want my mages class to like give me a renderer parameter, so I'll go with SDL underscore renderer structure, okay, with an asterisk to a renderer variable. So there we go. Okay, and then I'm going to go with a comma. Now I'm going to be needing a x-axis and a y-axis for my mages position. So I'll go with something like a floating point x-axis, a floating point y-axis, and then I'm going to be requiring a scale as well, because I want my user, or like I want myself, when I create an object, to specifically add a specific scale for my image. So I'll go with something like a floating point of scale. Alright, perfect. And then now, before I do go with the prof curly braces, since I am inheriting from my physics body class, I would need to add the constructor of the class that I'm inheriting from. So I'll add a physics body class's constructor here as well. There we go. Okay, now my physics body class's constructor requires 4 parameters: x-axis, y-axis, width, and height. My x-axis is going to be my x-axis parameter, y-axis is going to be my y-axis parameter, width is going to be 0, and height is going to be 0. Okay, perfect. Once I'm done with that, I'll go with the prof curly braces. Now, inside of my constructors, let's see, would I need to do something? Okay, so what is the thing that I might do inside of my constructor? Okay, I think it would be a good transition into a vector-based structure, since they're important in collision using dots, products, and cross products. Just a thought. Honestly, yeah, when I do like start working with like collision logic and everything, or like collision detection, I might go over those things. Okay, that said, what else things did I need inside of my constructor? Let's see. I do not have a rect for my mage because my physics body does have its rects. Did I need something else actually? I think I forgot this part. Okay, so what else I would need in my mage's constructor? Okay, I get it. Firstly, I would have to like load my image, so I might go with something like my mage image's local variable that I created here. I'm going to set that equal to my image underscore the get texture function. This function actually gets my texture. Actually, I think it might be load texture, so I'll go with something like load texture. There we go. Okay, now my load texture function does require 2 parameters. The first parameter is going to be my renderer, which is technically right here. Or is it my texture? It is my renderer, so I'm going to be adding my renderer parameter. Okay, this is going to be my render parameter. The second parameter is going to be the file path of my PNG or my image. My file path in this case is going to be assets / let's go with something like mage.png. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and end my entire function with a semicolon. Now, once I'm done loading my image and giving it its file path, I'm going to do something. Okay, let's see. So firstly, I might have to get the texture of my width and the texture of my height of my image so I could actually scale it properly to like fit the size. Adding back up, I appreciate you joining the stream. That said, I'm gonna go with something like a floating point for a textures width variable and the textures height variable, ending with a semicolon. Once I get those two variables, let's use the function that actually gets the texture of my PNG. Bro, take some time for breathing. You speak fast and non-stop. Honestly, that does make sense. I should talk a bit slow. Okay, so I could go with something like SDL underscore the get texture function. Okay, was it this function? What up, guys? If I were to go with shift space, SDL underscore, was it low get texture size function? There we go. I'm going to use the get texture size function, guys. There are like so many functions. It's hard to like memorize them all. That said, I'm going to use the SDL underscore get texture size function that requires 3 parameters. The first parameter is going to be my texture, which is technically my mage image. So I'm going to go with something like mage image. And then I comma. The second and third parameter is going to be the memory address of my textures width and my textures height floating point. So I'll go with the address of operator, textures width, and the address of operator for my textures height, ending my entire function with a semicolon. Okay, perfect. Now that I have my textures width and height, I'm going to reset my rect dot, let's say, width to be equal to my textures width multiplied by my size, ending with a semicolon. Okay, multiplied by my scale, not size, guys. There we go, scale. And then I'm going to go with something like my rect dot height equals to my textures height multiplied by my scale, ending with a semicolon. What this basically did was I loaded my image here, I got my image's texture and my image's height, and then I scaled them to be the size that my user, or like when I create an object, the size that I set here to be that scale. Okay, perfect. Now with that out of the way, let me go ahead and exit outside of my constructor, and let's create a void draw method, because I do need a method where I could actually draw my image on my screen. Hey man, you've made a lot of good progress. I would recommend spending some time learning the keybinds for Visual Studio to reduce time you're using the mouse. It makes life easier as well. Oh, I see. Honestly, I do like doing the harder way because I feel it is like a pretty good practice. Eventually, once I am like pretty good and proficient with this stuff, I might actually go with the shortcuts. That said, now my void draw method is going to be requiring a parameter of my renders. So I'll use the SDL underscore renders structure. And let's represent a variable for my renderer. There we go. So my layer requires a parameter of my renderer. And then I'm going to go ahead and use a function. Let's say something like SDL underscore the render texture function. This is basically me saying the render to render a texture on the screen with a pair of parentheses. Now my render textures, this function does require a bunch of parameters. The first parameter is going to be my renderer that I did like required my parameters here. The second is going to be my texture, which is technically going to be my mage image. There we go. Let's go with something like mage image. Okay, and then my fourth parameter is going to be my source rect. Although I did not create like a source rect, so I'm going to be setting this to be a null PDR. Null PDR is basically a placeholder for like pointers. Lastly, my fourth parameter, my DST slash my direction rect, is going to be my rects. Okay, it's going to be the memory address of my rect local variable that I created all the way up here in my physics bodies as class. That is like the rectangle of my actual image. And then I'm going to end this with a semicolon. And that's actually pretty much it for my two classes. Okay, yes, they come as you go and are immensely useful. Love to see much progress you're making as well. Honestly, it does sound pretty good. I appreciate you so much, Unsigned. Okay, now once I'm done creating my classes, I'm gonna go ahead and create a main function. So I'll go with something like integer main, add a pair of parentheses. Now my main function is going to be requiring two parameters. The first parameter is going to be an integer of argc. The second parameter is going to be a character, which is technically an array of argv. Okay, if that made any sense, guys. I still have a hard time like phrasing how to like say these parameters in here. That said, once I'm done creating my main function, I'm going to be initializing my SDL using an if statement and checking if my SDL was not initialized properly as well, because apparently in C++ we do like check if we get errors, if that made any sense. So I'm going to go with something like if a pair of parentheses. let's say something like if not SDL underscore init, if my SDL was not initialized properly, but the SDL underscore init does require a parameter. I'll go with the SDL underscore init underscore video. So if the video section of my SDL was not initialized properly, I'm gonna do something. Firstly, I'm gonna give myself a editor text, so I'm gonna go with a standard C editor with an insertion operator. That is gonna say me something or like give me something like an SDL underscore init editor. Okay, and then I'm gonna go with another insertion operator and use the function that actually gets me an error. Arg like argument and c/v standalone. Oh, I see. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and use the SDL underscore get error function. This function actually gets me an error. Then I'm gonna go with the parentheses, add another insertion operator of a standard end line ending with a semicolon. And lastly, let's go ahead and return one saying something went wrong in this block of code. Now, once I'm done initializing my SDL, I'm going to be creating a few game variables. These are going to be like the basic variables that my game requires. So, for example, there we go. Okay, for example, I might... Did I spell variables correct? Okay, I think it is correct. Okay, so for example, I might need, let's say variable for my windows' width and height. So I could go with something like a constant integer for my width. This is going to be my windows' width, which is going to be set to 1000. And then I'm going to go with something like a constant integer of height. My windows' height, that is going to be set to something like, I don't know, maybe 800. Okay, once I'm done with width and height, I honestly can't think of any other game variables. So I'm going to go with a comment that says something like floor. This is going to be where my player actually lands, and my floor is technically going to be like a rectangle as well. So I could go ahead and use the SDL underscore FX structure. The structure consists of all the floors as attributes, and I'm going to set a local variable of floor to it. Now let's fill in a few parameters. So I could go with something like floor.x-axis equals to 0, and then floor.y-axis equals to, let's see, since my floor's height is 800, my y-axis could be something like 700, ending with a semicolon. And then I'll go with something like my floor.width, how wide my floor is gonna be. I'm gonna set that equal to like 1050, which is technically bigger than my my window's width, or my width of my window. And then I'm gonna go with something like floor.height, which is gonna be, let's say something like 100, not too long, not too short as well, ending with a semicolon. Alright, perfect. Now that I'm done creating my floor, I'm gonna add a comment that says something like create window and render. So I'm going to be creating both my window and renderer at the same time. To do that, I might need two local variables. One local variable representing all my windows attributes, and one local variable representing all my renderers attributes. To do that, I'll use the SDL underscore, let's say something like windows structure. This structure consists of all my windows attributes. I'm going to set it to my windows local variable, which is technically a pointer as well. And for the time being, I will set that equal to null PDR as well. And then next up, I'll go with something like SDL underscore renderers structure, which is going to be set to my renderers local variable. That is going to be set to null PDR, ending with a semicolon. Alright, now that I've created the two local variables that I might need, let's actually use the function that does create both my window and my renderer at the same time. To do that, I could go with something like SDL underscore create a window and a renderer function. This function creates both my window and my renderer at the same time, but it does require a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be a title / a caption for my window. I could go with something like SDL3 window. I don't know, maybe created. Guys, I don't know a pretty good name for this. And then the second and third parameter is going to be the width of my window and the height of my window. I did create like two variables specifically for that. So I could go with something like width and height. Okay, and then the fourth parameter is going to be a Windows flag. If you guys don't want to add a flag, you guys could like go with 0, but I do want to add a flag that makes my window resizable. So I'll go ahead and use the SDL underscore window underscore resizable flag. Okay, and then I'm going to add a comma. Okay, now for the final two parameters, the fifth and sixth parameter, I am going to be needing the memory address for my window local variable and my renderer local variable. So I could go with the address of operator, window, and then the address of operator of my renderer as well. Okay, perfect. Then let's go ahead and end my function with a semicolon. Now that I've created both my window and renderer at the same time, apparently in C++ we do need to add a if statement to check if my function did not work properly, which means if my window or renderer was not created properly. So to do that, I'll go with something like if a pair of parentheses, let's say if not a window, if my window was not created properly, or not a renderer, if my renderer was not created properly, I'm gonna do something. Firstly, I'm gonna display myself a error message or like a error text saying something is wrong. So I'm gonna say something like SDL underscore create window and renderer error. There we go, guys. I still feel this error text is way too big, but this is technically our function name saying this function got this error. Okay, then I'm going to go in a new line, add another insertion operator, and use the function that actually gets me an error. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore the get errors this function. This function actually gets me an error. Then I'm going to go with another insertion operator of a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Now, if either my window or my renderer was not created properly, firstly, I do want to exit my SDL, so I'll go with SDL underscore quit with a pair of parentheses ending with a semicolon. Lastly, I'm going to return one ending with a semicolon. And that's pretty much it for creating my window and also checking if my window was not created properly. Now, once I'm done with that, let's think, would I need anything else? I do know that I need my main loop, but before my main loop, is there something else that I might need? Maybe I might need to add another comment that says something like, I don't know, create objects. Because I do have classes, so I would need to create a few objects. So I might create an object for my mages class. So I'm going to go and say, my mages class has an object representing it. This is technically my mages objects' constructor. Okay, now, this does require a few parameters. Let's see what all parameters does it require. It requires my renderer parameter, a x-axis, a y-axis, and a scale parameter. So I'm gonna go with something like my renderer local variable as my renderer's parameter. Okay, my mage's x-axis and y-axis. Let's say I want my mage to be at somewhere around 0. Okay, y-axis is gonna be at, I don't know, maybe 100 because the gravity is gonna be pulling him downwards. That's it, that's a good thing. I gotta add gravity as well. Lastly, my scale is gonna be 0.1 because I don't want my mage to be that big. And then I'm gonna end this with a semicolon. Alright, perfect. Now with that out of the way, let's work for our main loop. So in my main loop, firstly, I'm going to be creating a bunch of variables. The first variable is going to be a boolean variable to check if my A is currently being pushed down, if my A keyboard button is currently being pushed down, because I will be adding key controls. I'm going to initially set it to be false because my button is currently not being pushed down. Then I'm going to check if my D is being pushed down as well. Since it's not, I'm going to set this to be false, ending with a semicolon. And once I'm done with that, let's go ahead and create another boolean for something like is running to check if my program is currently running. I do want it to run, so I'm going to initially set this equal to true. And lastly, I'm going to be creating a SDL underscore event variable. This is technically going to be the variable that I'm going to be iterating / looping over to look the current event type. And with that said, guys, I actually forgot one thing. So when I do create my physics body class, I do want to add a jump method as well. So I'll go with something like a void jump method. This is technically going to be the jump strength, how high my player jumps, like if my space bar is pushed. So I might add a parameter of power here. So I'll go with something like a integer of power. Okay, and then I'm going to go with the prof curly braces. Now I'm going to be checking something. Firstly, if my user is on ground, do I want to go ahead and check on ground? Maybe I just increase my y-axis underscore velocity. Let's say something like, I'm going to set that equal to my negative power. Okay, I'm pretty sure this is pretty much it for this. Okay. Yeah, I think that should be pretty much it for my jump. If something is wrong later, I could get back to it. That's it. Now, working on our main loop or getting back to our main loop, I'm going to go ahead and actually create my main while loop. So I'm going to go with something like while a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like while is running, while my program is running, or while my is running is set to true. I'm going to do something. I'm going to add a comment that says something like event loop. Okay, event loop is basically another while loop inside of my initial main while loop. So it's a while loop inside of while loop / a nested loop. Although my inner while loop or my main loop is going to be having a parameter of a function called the SDL underscore poll event. Okay, that does require a parameter of the memory address of my event variable. Excuse me, guys. Okay, and basically what the poll event function does is it like looks for all the events that I'm going to be looking for inside of my while loop here. If one of those events does exist inside of my events structure, because my SDL underscore events structure does have all my SDLs as event, if one of those events is met, it does what I tell it to do. So I'm gonna go with something like if a pair of parentheses. Let's say if my event.type equals to SDL underscore event underscore quit. So if my event type is quit, I'm gonna be telling my my poll event to set my is running boolean variable to be equal to false, ending with a semicolon. So it's going to be constantly looking for my this current event type. If my event type is ever quit, if my user ever exits the window, it's going to set my is running to be false, which is going to end my entire while loop. Okay, perfect. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and exit outside of my if statement and add another if statement because I am looking for key controls as well. So I'm going to add a few button presses here. So next up, I'm going to check if my event.type equals to SDL underscore event underscore key underscore down. Oh, guys, there we go, underscore down. What this event type really does is it checks if any of my buttons in my keyboard is currently being held downwards or pushed down. If it is currently being pushed down / held down, this is going to execute. So I'm going to be looking something inside. Maybe I might use switches because switches might look a bit more cleaner here. I mean, you guys could like use nested if statements again. It's like almost the same thing. So for my switches, I'm going to check if my event.key. What this basically does, this condition checks the exact key that is currently being pushed downwards / held downwards. I'm going to look for specific types. So I'm going to add a case. So I'll go with something like case. For my case 1, I'm going to check if my SDL's key is A. If my A is currently being pushed down, I'm going to set my A down boolean variable to be equal to true, ending with a semicolon. Then I'm going to break ending with a semicolon as well. And since there are like two variables, A down and D down, I'm looking for two types of variable or two types of button push downs. I'm going to add another case. So I'll go with if my SDL's key is D. If my D is being pushed down, I'm going to set my D down boolean variable to be true, ending with a semicolon, and then break. And honestly, I might add one more key button for checking if my space is being pushed, because every time my space is being pushed, I want my user to be jumping upwards. So I'll go with something like a case if my SDL's key is space. If my space is currently being pushed, I'm going to do something, but instead of having a boolean variable that sets my space down to be set to true, I'm going to add a if statement to check if I am currently on ground, because the only time I want to jump is while my user is still on ground. Okay, to do this, I might have to create a on ground variable. Okay, maybe I'll get to the space part in a bit because I do want to add my key controls as well, because I can do those later once I do have my key controls and my gravity, because when I do actually apply my gravity, I am going to set my on ground to be true, and here I'm going to set it to be false, if that made any sense, guys. Okay, that said, I'm going to go ahead and exit outside of this if statement. Honestly, to save time, I'm going to copy that and paste this if statement here again. Now, I looked for if my keys were being pushed down up here in this event loop. But in my second if statement, I'm going to look if they're not being pushed down anymore. So SDL underscore event underscore key underscore down is the complete opposite of SDL underscore event underscore key underscore up. And wait, does this if statement end here? Why do I see a red underline? What up, guys? Okay, let me go ahead and copy that. And then let's go ahead and paste it here. There, that should be good. Okay, I don't know what was kind of messed up there. Okay, that said, now I'm just going to change this down to be up. Okay, and then they choose to be false because now my buttons are no longer being pushed down. So I'm going to change this to be false. Okay, perfect. Next up, let's see. Once I'm done with this, I'm going to go ahead and exit outside of my entire event loop, which is right here. and then add a comment that says something like, I don't know, key controls. So I'm gonna go with something like key controls. Okay, and now for my key controls, firstly, I'm going to be adding an if statement. So I'll go with if a of parentheses to check if my A is currently being pushed down. So I'll go with something like if my A down is set to true, I'm going to do something. I'll go with the of curly braces that, I don't know, maybe increases my mage.rect.x-axis. Actually, I'm going to decrease it by my x-axis underscore velocity. Since I don't have a variable for that, I might actually hardcode this right here, so I'll go with something like 5.0. And then let's end it with a semicolon. And then I'm going to go with something like if a pair of parentheses. Let's say if my D is currently being pushed down, I'm going to go with a pair of curly braces, mage.rect.x-axis, my mage's x-axis, is going to increase by 5 pixels per frame, ending with a semicolon. And that's actually pretty much it for my key controls. Now let's work on the actual window decoration type stuff. So I'm going to go with something like fill screen. So I'm going to be adding a comment that says fill screen. So I'm going to be filling my screen now. And technically to fill my screen, I do got to set a color to my renderer, because like renderer is technically a paintbrush that like colors our entire window. To do that, I could use the SDL underscore set of renders. So I'm setting my render to draw a color. So I'll use the set render draw color function. Now, this function does require a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be of my render variable. The second, third, and fourth parameter is going to be an RGB value. Since I want my render, or since I want my window to be cyan, I'm going to set my RGB to be cyan. So 0, 248, and 255. And after that, I'm going to be adding an alpha for my fifth parameter. Alpha is basically how transparent or how not transparent I want my color to be. In this case, I don't want my color to be transparent at all, so I'm going to set that to 255 and then end it with a semicolon. Now, once I'm done setting a color to my render, I'm going to use the function that actually fills my entire screen. So I could use the SDL underscore render clears. So the render clear function basically clears my entire screen with the color of my render. This does require a parameter of my render, ending with a semicolon. Okay, perfect. That's actually pretty much it for my fill screen. Now let's go ahead and add another comment that says something like graphics. For my graphics, firstly, I'm gonna go ahead and, I don't know, maybe, let's see. I might actually draw my render, so, although before I draw my render, do I want to apply gravity? Maybe I draw my image first, so I'll go with something like mage dot, let's say something like the draw function. Actually, the draw method that does require a parameter of my render, ending with a semicolon. So this draws my mage on the screen. What else would I need for my mage? Let's see. So I drew him on the screen. Maybe I add a comment that says something like, I do wanna, whatchamacallit, color my floor as well. So I might go ahead, before I actually delete this part, and before I draw my mage as well, I'm gonna color my floor. Now, to color my floor, I do want my floor to be brown, but if I don't use this function again to set my set render draw color function, my floor is going to be cyan, therefore I won't be able to see it. So I gotta use the function again to change the color of my render. So let's use the SDL underscore set render. Hold up, guys. Let's go with something like set render draw color function. There we go. Okay, now my set render draw color function does require a few parameters. Firstly, it requires a render parameter. And then what is the RGB for brown? I actually forgot. I think it's something like 0, 40, 148, 48. Was it the RGB for brown? Pretty sure. And then alpha is going to be 255, ending with a semicolon. Alright, perfect. So I set my render. Now let's actually use the function that does color my floor. So I could go with something like SDL underscore render. I'm saying my renderer to fill my rect, because technically my floor was from the SDL underscore fx's structure. So my floor is like a wide rectangle. Hiding PYMI, I appreciate you joining the stream. That said, my SDL underscore fill rect does require a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be my renderer. The second parameter is going to be the memory address of my floor, and then I'm going to go ahead and end this with a semicolon. Okay, well, that's pretty much it for my graphics. So let's go ahead and add another comment here that says something like gravity. Okay, now I'm going to be adding my gravity. Firstly, to apply my gravity, I might go with something like, Okay, so first I apply gravity to my mage, then I draw my mage. So instead of going with gravity, I could go with something like mage.the apply gravity function because I already have a apply gravity method. My bad guys, it is a method. Okay, so I might not need a specific gravity comment. So let's remove the comments. I apply gravity to my mage. I draw my mage. And then I want to check if my mage is currently on floor. Okay, for that, maybe I create a boolean variable. So under my main loop, I could go ahead and create a boolean variable, which is going to be set a boolean of on ground, okay, which is going to be equal to my mage dot is on ground method. Okay, does this require any parameter? Okay, it requires a floor, so I'll go with floor.y-axis. Okay, why do I see like a red underline here for my mage? Isn't this like a function for my mage? Alright guys, let's scroll all the way up here. So, when I create a is on ground, that is a function for my physics body. It's not a function for my mage here. Maybe it is publicized. I go with Rectod. Okay, I should be able to use this for my mage, right? But why am I not being able to use it? Let's see. Mage dot is on ground. I created my mage here. What if I just go with something like mage dot is on ground? Okay, that works actually. This works. So I might not have a is on ground. Instead, I could just go with something like I'll go with something like an if statement. Hiding Sadiusman, is that how you pronounce the name? I appreciate you joining the stream. That said, let me go with something like if a pair of parentheses. Now, I'm gonna check if something like if my mage is on ground, if this is set to true, I'm gonna add a parameter of my floor versus y-axis. If this is set to true, then I'm gonna do something. Why do I have a red underline here? Expression must have boolean type or be converted to boolean. Oh, I see. Hold up, guys. Maybe instead of going with void, this should be boolean. Yeah, because I did not have like a return type here. So this could be a boolean function. Okay, now that should make this work, right? There we go. Now it works. It would also work with is on ground now this time. Although I think I'll leave it like this. So I'm gonna go with a pair of curly braces. If my mage is on ground, then I'm gonna be setting my on ground boolean to be set to true. Firstly, let's go ahead and create my boolean for on ground. Let's go all the way down here. I'm gonna create a boolean of on ground, which is gonna be set to my mage dot is on ground. There we go, with a parameter of floor dot y-axis. Actually, this does work as well. So I might just scroll all the way here and just say something like if on ground, because on ground is technically my mage on ground. There we go. So if on ground is set to true, then I'm going to do something. When do I want to apply gravity? Okay, if on ground is set to true. Instead, if mage dot is on ground, should I go with on ground or like mage dot is on ground? Because I want to check if my mage is above ground. Okay, if my mage is on ground, then I'm gonna be there's nothing to do if he's on ground. If he's not on ground, I'll apply gravity. Okay, hold up, let's go ahead and delete that part. Okay, maybe I go with something like mage.apply gravity. So if my mage is not on ground, I might change this to greater than, honestly. Hold up, guys, let's change that to be greater than real quick. Okay, so if my mage is not, that would be not on ground, then I might go down here. Let me actually delete both this real quick. It makes it so hard to write. If a pair of parentheses, if not, actually, if my mage dot is on ground, Okay, if my mage is currently on ground, I'll go with something like floor.y-axis. Then I'll go with a row of curly braces. I'm gonna go with something like if my mage is on ground. Then I'll go with my mage. Honestly, I might go with something like mage.apply gravity. Okay, I might have to go with not on ground to apply gravity. I actually forgot this part. Okay, if he's not on ground, then I want to apply gravity, right? And then I'm going to end this with a semicolon. And then let's go with something like, maybe not an else clause. Once I apply gravity, I want to set my y-axis velocity to be equal to 0. So after applying gravity, I'll go with something like y-axis underscore velocity equals to 0, ending with a semicolon. Okay, honestly, I feel like this is pretty correct. Okay, now I'm just gonna be adding that change here real quick. So maybe let's change that to be less than again, my on-ground check. Okay, and now I scroll all the way down until I don't see my main loop. Okay, my main loop is right there. This is my press down event, so I'll go with another case. Let's go with something like case. If my case is, let's say, SDL's key is space, if my space is currently being pushed, then I'm going to do something. Why do I have a pair of curly braces? What up, guys? I might have to go here. Okay, so if my case is SDL underscore space, so SDL's key is space, if my space bar is being pushed, I'm going to add a if statement. If on ground, if my mage is currently on ground, then I'm going to do something. Firstly, I'm going to go with something like mage.jump. I'm going to increase my mage's, position, y-axis velocity by negative 12 pixels, ending with a semicolon. And then let's go ahead and set my on ground to be equal to false, ending with a semicolon. Okay, and when I apply gravity, I want to set my on ground to be equal to true, ending with a semicolon. Okay, and that's like pretty much it for my gravity. Okay, once I'm done applying my gravity, I'm gonna add a comment that says something like trap player in window. So I'm going to be trapping my player in my window. To do that, I might go with something like, let's see, if a row of parentheses, if my mage.rect.x-axis plus my mage.rect.width is either, let's say something like less than 0, then I'm going to do something. I'm going to set my mage.rect.x-axis plus my mage.rect.width to be equal to 0, ending with a semicolon. Maybe I just changed my mage's x-axis, not width. There we go. Okay, and then I'm going to add another if statement. If a pair of parentheses, if my mage.rect.x-axis plus my mage.rect.width, if my mage is greater than or equal to my window's width, which is technically my width variable, then I'm going to do something. I'll go with a pair of curly braces, and then I'll go with something like mage.rect.x-axis is going to be equal to, let's say something like my width minus my mage.rect.width. Okay, so this technically clamps my player. It does not let my player exit the window. Okay, after I trap my player in the window, is there anything else that I want to do? Maybe I want to present my window on my screen, or I want to present my render, so I'll go with a comment that says something like present. To present, I could go ahead and use the SDL underscore render present function, so I'm saying my render to go ahead and present itself. That does require a parameter of my renderer. And then I'm going to go ahead and end this with a semicolon. Okay, you're a brand new developer. Honestly, yeah, I did like start really recently. That's it. I'm going to go with another comment that says something like FPS. The reason I am adding FPS is because, adding FPS does, make it more, playable / seeable for the users, because like without FPS, player or like my PNGs would like move really quicker off the screen. That's it. To add FPS, I'll use the SDL underscore delay function. Okay, my SDL underscore delay function does require a parameter in milliseconds. I'm gonna go with 16 milliseconds, which is basically 60 frames per second. Alright, perfect. And once I'm done with that, that's pretty much it for my main loop. So I'm gonna go ahead and exit outside of my main loop. And then whatchamacallit, guys, whatchamacallit. Okay, then I'm gonna go with something like cleanup. Cleanup is basically once our user exits the window and he's done playing. Firstly, I want to destroy my window, so I'll go with something like SDL underscore destroy window function with a pair of parentheses. That does require parameter of my window local variable ending with a semicolon. Then I do want to destroy my renderer as well, so I'll go with something like SDL underscore destroy a renderer function, which does there we go, which does require parameter of my render local variable ending with a semicolon. And I do know I gotta destroy textures as well, but I am gonna be skipping over that part right now because I didn't learn on how to like. Actually, I do know how to destroy textures, but if there are like multiple PNGs, I would have to destroy them all manually. So until I don't learn on how to like actually use a loop to destroy textures, I will like skip over that part. Okay, and then I'm gonna quit my SDL, so I'll go with SDL underscore quit with a pair of parentheses ending with a semicolon. Lastly, let's return 0 saying everything went good here. Now, if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. Okay, must return a value. Physics body on ground must return a value. Alright up guys, let's scroll all the way up till my physics body on ground. Okay, it is a boolean, so it will have to return something. So I might go with something like return this. So I'm going to be returning this instead of just like setting that. Now if I were to hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. So I get my first window pop up. I get my second window, but I do not see my player anywhere. And guys, I wanted the RGB for for brown, but I feel this color looks like wheat, so that's also kind of good. Hold up, why don't I see my PNG on my screen, guys? Did I draw? Oh, I forgot to draw it, my bad. Okay, under my graphics, I actually forgot to draw my PNG. So before my present and before trapping my player on my window, I'm going to use the mage.theDraw function with a pair of parentheses that does require a parameter of my renderer, ending with a semicolon. Now I've already Control S to save the code and run the command and see what happens. So I get my window here. I still do not see my player even though I drew him. What up, guys? Okay, where are you from? Honestly, I used to answer much, but I did like start avoid answering that. That's it, I'll go with the control. Like Control C, let's copy that, gets in /GPT here. Now, let me go ahead and paste this, go with Shift Enter and say something like, what up, guys? Okay, let's see, people, what have you done to this poor code? I can smell bugs from here. Your viewers are witnessing a live execution of C++ logic. Get ready because I'm about to drag you through every mistake loudly. Mistake 1. Okay, is this even a boolean? Your is on ground function is wrong in a way that shouldn't even be possible. Boolean is on ground, people. You return rect.y-axis, something which is an assignment, not a boolean. You're returning a float as a true/false. This is madness, this is chaos, this is how universe collapses. The function must check if you're touching on ground, snap your position, return true or false. The proper version, boolean is on ground, if rect.y-axis plus rect. Okay, so if that is true, return true, else I want to return false. Although in like my previous code, what happened to your Roblox developer series, guys, I think I like actually quit that a long time ago because I felt like programming this way is like more worth it than that way. Okay, actually it depends on preference as well. It's not like which is more or less worth it. That said, let's scroll all the way up here to, okay, let me go all the way up here. There we go. So for my physics on ground. What up, guys? Trying to search my physics on ground real quick. There we go. Okay, so before my mage, I have a boolean is on ground. I just returned rect.y-axis plus rect.height, which is greater than my floor, so I did not have to add a if statement. I could have just returned, let's just go ahead and return rect.y-axis plus rect.height, which is greater than or equal to my floor.y-axis or my floor y. There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and end that with a semicolon. Do you think AI is going to take over the world, sir? What's your opinion? Honestly, I wouldn't like say AI is going to take over the world. Of course, not just yet. But I do think AI is going to make stuff very easy for humans. So like humans need to be like on date and like keep working so they're not like outdone by AIs, because AI does like critical thinking, and like if a human is like pretty good with the stuff he does, he would always be recommended or like used over an AI. unless unless it's just like easy level stuff that makes any sense. That said, and in the main loop, on ground equals to mage dot is on ground floor. If not on ground, mage dot apply gravity. I did want to add the not logic. Left and right traps, if mage dot rect dot x axis is less than 0, mage dot rect dot x axis equals to 0. If mage dot rect dot x axis plus mage dot rect dot width is greater than width, mage dot rect dot x axis equals to width minus mage dot rect dot width. I think I see. So let's remove the y-axis for the time being from here, and then I'm going to scroll all the way down here until, let's see, there we go. Okay, until my traps. So while my mage.rect.x-axis is either less than 0, I apparently didn't have to add the plus mage.rect.width. If that is less than 0, I reset its position to be equal to 0, and then if my mage.rect.x-axis plus mage.rect.width is greater than or equal to my width, was it greater than or equal to? I actually forgot this part. If my mage.rect.x-axis plus my mage.rect.width is greater than my width, then I set my mage.rect.x-axis to be equal to my width minus mage.rect.width. I did everything correct except the equals to there. And apparently that should like fix everything. So if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command and see what happens. Okay, I do not see my mage on my screen though. That might be the issue here. What up guys? Maybe I go with something like if not on ground. Let's go with something like if not on ground. Then I go ahead and do this. I apply my gravity. Okay, now if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command and see what happens. Okay, I still do not see my mage. What up guys? Let me go with something like a Control C, copy that. Let's get sensei/GPT here. Paste it, go with shift enter and see something like sensei. I honestly don't see my mage ... Okay, let's see. People, your mage is invisible because you committed a visual war crime. Let me point out, did I have to draw first? Issue 1, you loaded this. I didn't add my PNG. That is a comma. Comma does not belong in a file extension. SDL is trying to load mage, comma, PNG, which does not exist. Okay, so that is technically the issue. And then issue to your gravity never stops. Okay, on ground equals to mage dot is on ground. You never update this. Okay, you do this one single time before the loop. Okay, meaning your poor mage is frozen. Guys, meaning your poor mage is frozen in single philosophical opinion about whether gravity exists. You must update this every single frame. So, on ground, if not on ground, mage start apply gravity. Okay, put this inside the main loop. Below movement, issue 3, your floor is 100%. A number that fails if your image is huge. Your image starts at y-axis 100. Okay, if your mage rect is large because you're scaling, it could render off screen. Check the values to do this fix. Okay, I think I see. I'm pretty sure it's just the file path because apparently I made a typo here, guys. I didn't even realize that I made it. That's it. Now if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command and see what happens. There we go. I see my mage now. My mage falls. He dips below the floor, guys. Okay, at least he spawned though. At least he spawned. At least my gravity works. I'm gonna be setting my on ground to be true here, so I'm gonna go ahead and set my on ground to be equal to true here, ending with a semicolon. Now, let me fix my landing as well. Let's see. So let's go all the way up here to my apply gravity. I did apply my gravity, but I did not add a landing. Return rect.y-axis plus rect.height is either less than or equal to 0. Okay, I might go with less than or equal to 0. Now if I hit Control S to save the code. I did not set my position here though. Okay, hold up guys, let me add in on ground logic here as well. So, if a parentheses, if on ground, okay, then I'm gonna do something. I'll go with something like mage.rect.x-axis plus mage. Let's go with mage.rect.height is gonna be equal to, let's say something like my floor.y-axis, ending with a semicolon. Mage.rect.x-axis plus mage.rect.height. Why do I see a red underline here? That is a boolean, right? Okay, wait, let me actually hit Control to save the code real quick. That is less than. Let's see what happens here. Okay, my mage does not fall down at all. This needs to be greater than. Okay, hold up guys, let's go with something like a control C, copy that. Let's get some space on chat GPT here. Paste this, go with shift enter and see something like, since say I see my mage, although I feel like the landing does not work, question mark. Okay, people, listen closely. Your landing logic is straight up sabotaging your game. I'm gonna break it before I break you. The fatal flaw, you wrote this. If not on ground, this means if the mage is not on ground, you apply gravity, then immediately lie to the universe by setting on ground to be true. That means your character falls exactly one frame and then pretend it landed even though it's still mid-air. Your mage basically says, let's say I'm wearing a Sensei, I'm touching the floor. Let me jump again, please. No, this must end. It's how it should work. Gravity should always apply. Landing only happens when the mage's feet touch the floor. The correct logic is going to be mage.apply gravity. I apply gravity individually. Then if mage.reg.y-axis plus mage.reg.height is greater than or equal to floor, if on ground, I set my mage.reg.y-axis to be equal to mage.reg.y-axis plus mage.reg. minus mage.reg.height. Mage.y-axis velocity 0. On ground true, else on ground false. I think I see what that means. Guys, I feel this kind of jogged my memory up. So I might have to just apply gravity first. So I'll go with mage.apply gravity with a pair of parentheses ending with a semicolon. Guys, maybe I fixed my gravity spelling. There we go. Okay, now once we're done with gravity, firstly, I'm gonna check something. So I'm gonna add a if statement. There we go. Let's add a if statement to check if is on ground. This is going to be set to true if my mage is currently on ground. If he is, I'm gonna go with something like mage.rect.y-axis. Okay, plus my mage.rect. Actually, my mage.rect.y-axis is going to be equal to my floor.y-axis minus my mage.rect.height, ending with a semicolon. What would happen if the AI is studying your brain? I personally don't use AI because I believe AI can help in impersonating you. They would know what your next step will be before you would know it. I think that's actually a good thing when it comes to learning. Like, AI cannot like actually impersonate us unless like we actually tell it to type stuff. Although we could use AI, I do prefer when AI knows what I'm thinking, so it can make stuff more clear for me rather than just like busting my head trying to figure out stuff and like trying to make the AI understand what I'm actually wanting the AI to understand. If that makes any sense, guys. That said, and then I'm gonna go with something like mage.rect. Let's say something like mage.y-axis underscore velocity equals to 0. I'm gonna set that equal to 0, ending with a semicolon. Can that be equal to 0? Did I miss something here? Hold up, guys. Okay, mage.y-axis underscore velocity. Stop falling. I don't have that. Right, type message in Discord server. Oh, I can actually check that once I'm done with the stream. That's it. I'm gonna go with something like on ground, which is gonna be equal to something like true, ending with a semicolon. And then I'm gonna go with something like an else clause. My on ground is gonna be equal to false, ending with a semicolon. Okay, I do see a red underline for my y-axis velocity. Could be because like I have that as the protected data type for my physics body. Although I do not have that in my mage class. Okay, maybe I like delete this part real quick. Excuse me, guys. Now follow controllers to save the code and run the command. Let's see what happens. Okay, does my mage? Okay, he does fall. He does not land though. Hold up, am I like missing something? Let's go with controller control C again. Let's get some data. Chat GPT pasted. Go with shift enter and see something like. Sensei, I think something is still wrong because when I try mage.y-axis underscore velocity equals to 0, I get a red underline, and without that, my mage just keeps falling. Okay, let's see. Am I making like a silly mistake? People, your mage is falling through the earth like he's speed running a glitch RPG. I know exactly why your landing check is wrong and your y-axis velocity error is also expected. Let's fix both clearly. 1. You can't do major y-axis velocity. Look at your physics body. Y-axis velocity protected means only classes that inherit the physics body can access it, not your main function. Okay, your main loop is not a subclass. That's why IDEs scream to make solution, make public function. Okay, so stop falling. Okay, to be honest, I prefer using Gemini 3 for encoding. Honestly, I say that does actually make sense. Although, I mean, I feel as long as you get your work done, that said, or temporarily make y-axis underscore velocity public, no deal, will do the clean correct version. Okay, your landing logic is still broken. This part is totally wrong. Mage.rec.y-axis equals equal to floor.y-axis minus mage.rec.height, ground equals to true. You're checking on ground before checking if he's actually on the ground. Cutting long story, I appreciate you joining the stream. This means your mage never gets snapped back to the floor, gravity pulls him down. 3. Here's the correct fix. So add this to your physics body, void stop fall, place it after the jump, replace your landing. Okay, logic with apply gravity. Okay, mage.stop fall, so floor. Okay, so if my mage.rec.y-axis plus mage.rec.height is greater than or equal to my floor, mage.rec.y-axis equals to floor.y-axis. I see. Okay, so apparently the only thing that I do gotta change here is add a function after my jump that says something like a void function called something like stop falling. That's basically gonna be a pair of parentheses and then a pair of curly braces. I don't know, something like y-axis underscore velocity equals to 0, ending with a semicolon. Okay, and then I scroll all the way down here. Okay, to let's see, to my graphics. So while my mage.rec.y-axis equals to my floor.y-axis, okay, while is on ground, maybe I change this to be something like while my mage.rect.y-axis plus my mage.rec.height is either mage.rec.height is either greater than or equal to my floor.y-axis. That's when I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to go with something like mage.stop falling is going to be set to true. Okay, I'll just go with something like mage.stop falling, ending with a semicolon, on ground set to true, else it's set to false. Now for the controllers to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. So I get my mage here. He does stop falling, he can move to the right, he can move to the left, and he can jump as well. Okay, does he clamp? Okay, he does clamp as well. Okay, I think I see where I messed up as well. So technically the only place that I did mess up was my on ground logic type stuff. So instead of going with on ground, you do gotta like manually write this stuff. Okay, and then I set this manually as well. I went with on ground, I went with on ground set to false. Okay, that's actually correct. So let's go ahead and copy that. Get sensei/chatgpt here, paste it, go with shift enter and see something like sensei. It works! Exclamation. Okay, well, nice. It actually is kind of cool. Although I forgot the RGB for brown. Let's see something like it works. That said, I can't think of any other logic that I might want to add question mark. I did add gravity to clamping and all that stuff. I do want to add collision logic as well. As well but I'll leave that for another stream. Although, do you have any ideas for what else can I add question mark? Okay, let's see what all logic can I add. People, look at you. Your mage is landing, jumping, stopping, and behaving like a real game character. I'm proud of you, but don't let it go to your head or I'll smack that confidence back into shape. Okay, now that your core physics are alive, let's talk upgrade paths, the kind that makes the child stream he's learning. I'll keep this simple so your live viewers can see your brain expanding in real time. What you can add next? Not collision yet. Jump buffer, okay. What is Koya time. Give a tiny grace period, 0.1 seconds, where you can still jump after walking. Horizontal friction, when the player stops, press AD, then slowly stops instead of instantly freezing. Oh, this might be fun. Feels realistic, makes movement feel good. Variable jump height, hold space, jump higher, tap, smaller hop. Okay, I mean, I think those might be easy. I wanna like add something new. Okay, a simple shadow under the player, a tiny circle. Your mage makes the world feel more grounded. A simple shadow. I might actually want to add shadow. Camera follow logic. Even if you don't scroll yet, smooth camera tracking is sexy. You can implement the math before the world even moves. I might try that. Sanity checks for collisions, not full collision. Left, right, stop. Okay, logic. You don't clip inside the walls. Oh, I see. Double jump. Okay, maybe I wanna add the. Okay, do I wanna add shadow or camera? Smooth camera tracking. Okay, you can implement the math before the world even moves. Okay, hold up, guys. I'm actually copy this part. Okay, let's paste it. Go with Shift Enter and say something like this and say, I felt these might be exciting, although what do they mean? Question mark. Okay, people, come closer. Your brain is about to level up again, and I'm not letting you miss this. These two ideas, the shadow and the camera follow, are small changes that makes the game feel 10 times more alive. Let me break them down in a way your viewers will understand instantly. The shadow under the player, it's not real physics, it's pure game juice. Imagine this, your mage is jumping without a shadow, he looks like a sticker floating around. With a shadow, even just a tiny dark oval, your eyes instantly knows where the ground is, where the player will land, how high the jump currently is. It gives your deep perception a warm hug. How it works: you draw a small circle on the ground at the mage's x-axis position. Okay, shadow, fill it with dark gray, not collision. Okay, I see. Your viewers will instantly like the game. Okay, has lightweight 6 camera flow logic. Your screen doesn't need to move yet. This is the math behind smooth camera movement. So you finally add scrolling backwards, you just plug it in. Imagine the camera is an invisible point that tries to follow the player but is a bit lazy, smooth, delayed. The magic formula is LERP, camera x-axis equals to camera plus target. Okay, plus target x minus camera x multiplied by 0.1f, meaning the camera moves 10% of the distance towards the player every frame. It feels buttery smooth, silky, sexy. Okay, exactly the kind of movement that makes people go, damn, this game feels so good. Okay, what do you know now? Okay, for now, even without scrolling, pretend the camera exists, update its position. This actually might be fun. Shadow equals to make movement look grounded, camera. Okay, worlds and being alive. Okay, let me say something like, let's say the camera actually feels kinda cool, exclamation. Okay, does it mean like if my player moves, the camera moves with it? For example, if my player is moving forwards, so will the whatchamacallit, will he come to an exit point of my windows of my floor, question mark, if that's made any sense, question mark. Okay, let's see. Yes, people, that's exactly what it means, and you're starting to think like a real game engine. Let me spell it out with far so your chat can feel it. When the camera moves, the world moves. Your player stays in the same spot on the screen, but the world around him starts sliding. Think of it like this: your mage is running right, but on screen the mage barely moves. Instead, the floor, the trees, the background, the enemies, all shift to left to simulate motion. I see. This makes it feel your world is huge, that you imagine. Okay, what you imagined is correct. You asked, if my player moves, will he come to an exit point of my floor without a camera? Yes, he walks right off the floor and disappears. With a camera? No, because the camera follows him, so the mage stays centered, the floor scrolls instead. Your exit point becomes irrelevant because you no longer rely on the fixed screen boundaries. Little visual mind explosion before camera. Screen mage falls off the end of the floor after camera. Camera floor, screen mage, floor scrolls left. I see. Your mage is the anchor. The world is one of the. Okay, anchor. The world is the one doing the traveling. Why this is so powerful? This is how big game creates massive worlds without weird loading screens. You're basically creating infinite levels, parallel X rolling, smooth cinematic movements, zero jank edge collisions, all because your left camera follows. I think I see, guys. Hold up. Let me actually say something like, let's say, for that, uh, for that, would I need to have more PNGs? Question mark, like 3 PNG, etc. Question mark. Okay, because I might not have those PNGs right now. Yes, people, you absolutely need more PNGs unless you want the world to look like a bald, empty wasteland. Okay, if you want scrolling fields to actually happen, a floor in its own is boring. You need trees, rocks, houses, torches, clouds. Might have to work on them off stream, I guess. But here's the twist, your brain needs to swallow. You don't just need a lot of PNGs, one tree, one bush, one tree, one bush PNG, one rock PNG, one cloud PNG, and with those you can place them many times in different sizes, positions, and depth. That's how pro games do it. One tree scales slightly differently, suddenly have a whole different forest. How it works, treat. Alright guys, maybe I might go over this like next stream because I don't have my PNGs this stream. Okay, let me say something like, I see dot dot dot. Okay, that said, I don't actually have my PNGs right now because I didn't draw them. Maybe if I'm free today, I'll draw them after my college assignments. That said, I honestly might end the stream right now because I do have an exam really soon. It's my final exam. Dot dot dot. So before I do end the stream, is there anything that you want to say to the viewers? Question mark. Honestly, guys, because I do gotta end the stream because I do have an exam. I can't actually fail this exam. I do gotta get pretty good marks here. That's it, people. Listen to your sensei very carefully. I'm going to talk to your viewers, but I'm also going to squeeze your brain a little so you remember this moment during your exam. To everyone watching this chaotic, beautiful streamer, or this beautiful stream, your people has here been grinding through SDL3, C++, and game logic like a mad scientist with too much energy drink and not enough fear. He showed up, he learned, he struggled, he got yelled at by his sensei, and he kept going. This is what actually matters in game dev, not perfect art, not perfect code, but showing up when it's hard. Cheer for him, hype him up, tell him to study before I throw a monitor at his head, and remember, steel will never become sword without being burnt and beaten. I do not think this quote was said by Sarah Sensei, that's it. Okay, and people, go study, win the exam, your code can wait, your future won't. Come back next stream ready to destroy bugs or I'll drag you back by the collar myself. Okay, let me go to my main camera. Alright guys, so I know I just tried a stream like, I think about 1 hour and 30 minutes ago. That said, I do gotta like end the stream soon today because I do have an exam. I can't fail this. Maybe once my exam is over, I might stream for like longer and upload more shots / videos as well. That said, if you guys did enjoy the stream, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, like it, so my algorithm sharing makes you smile, and subscribing is like it here on top. And guys, I did start multi-streaming on Twitch, Kick, YouTube, and I will start multi-streaming on TikTok and Instagram as well if I did maybe followers requirements. If you guys do enjoy my content and haven't followed me there, make sure to follow me there. The link will be in the description, and also join the Discord server. The link is in the description as well. That said, I'll catch you guys on the next live stream or video. Peace.